are. Episode 3. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way right now. I'm actually surprised how little was changed between the sub and the dub, because everybody says, oh, everybody changes everything, and they Forgets changes everything, and it's like, and it's like, there is a decent chunk of stuff they changed, but there's also a decent chunk of stuff that they didn't really. But regardless, as ever, start with my notes. So, standard one. At some point, I'll stop showing my notes. Notes probably because you'll get sick and tired of it just being like, oh, it's one page again. Oh, it's one page again. I'll probably mention it when it comes to, like when it gets to like if I have an episode where I have to take multiple notes. This episode, I was debating whether or not to even take some of these notes because this is a bog standard episode. I think the first thing I want to talk about, though, is this is the first episode, basically, if we're not counting the Death T arc, which could be considered its own, I forget how many episodes long it was, because the Death T arc in Season 0 was multiple episodes long. So, not counting that, this is actually the first time they got away from the episodic format, because even the Death T arc was just kind of a little arc in the series, right? And in its defense, they were building up to that point. But here, no, it's really the entire season is one big contiguous arc. So there's that. So we start off with Yugi on the roof contemplating things. He's thinking about Pegasus's power in the Japanese version and is basically upset that Grandpa's soul got taken in the dub. Both have their strengths and weaknesses, though to fit their thing, they did actually have to put Grandpa's face in the in the sky, because originally it was just Pegasus and Atem's faces that you see. There is some implication that Atem is actually the one speaking during that initial scene. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly, especially considering it feels like nothing. I feel like there's no acknowledgement of Atem yet. Not really. We had Sub Kaiba be like, huh? But that was like it back in episode 1, so yeah. So until the show acknowledges Atem, I'm just going to cock my eyebrow every time Atem speaks. Sense make. So then Joey gets a video from his sister, Shizuka, or as she's known in the dub, Serenity. I am so fighting the urge to make a joke here. It's so funny. I mean, I've already mentioned the self-insert fanfiction thing, but you want the original version? It's like, well, that's even more so. Anyways, I'm gonna knock this out of the way right now. They mention that Joey's goal uh, is to get the huge prize money for Serenity's operation. Now, what's funny is in the dub, they mention it's $3 million because they're not going to say it in yen. Now, again, like I said, originally, even if it is like yen to dollars, which if we want to just say that they just took yen and said dollars, that means they don't really have any sense of scale, because, as I said last time, $3 million is a lot of money. It's 7 figures. But 7 figures in yen is a lot less. It's like 5 figures. 27,455 or something like that. 27,455. And now that's in today's currency. 27,000 still would be a decent chunk of money even back in the 2000s. So, yeah, needless to say. So then they're lamenting that they can't get onto the boat. Joey tries to sneak on, he fails. Although in the Japanese version, it's much more implied that he basically just stands in line just like Yugi does. So Jinochi is dumber than Joey. Don't get used to that. It's not a trait that's gonna last. So then Yugi gives him one of his star chips and basically talks him in. Now what's funny is Pegasus is the reason they are allowed to stay on. Which kind of makes one scene later kind of make less sense. But I suppose Pegasus could also have had, the tape Pegasus, as I like to call him, probably could have scanned the entire room and just been like, yeah, they're harmless, I'm not going to bother, right? So then Mai shows up. Mai Kuchaku? Sorry, I didn't write down her last name in the Japanese version. Mai. We'll just keep calling her Mai. Although I do prefer her more pun-filled name in the dub, My Valentine. It's worthy of note that her last name in the Japanese version actually makes more sense, considering she tends to use winged beast monsters, specifically harpies. So yeah. Also, by the way, the deck with only 4 monster cards, yeah, that's hers. It'll go up to 5 when it gets to the finals. Which is funny because they actually revealed a new version of that card, the one from the finals. Anyways, so Weevil is less obvious about it. It feels like Weevil's less obvious about the theft in the Japanese version. He just says that he's heard of new rules, but he sounds like confident that he knows something that nobody else does, right? At least with the Japanese version, it's implied that Weevil just heard a rumor, as opposed to him knowing and basically revealing his hand of, hey, I stole the new rules. I know something everybody else doesn't. He basically telegraphs it in the dub, and it's like, really? Yeah. So then Joey trades for some new cards. He gets Salamandra, Baby Dragon, Kunai with Chain, Sword and Shield, and then Yugi gives him Time Wizard. Yeah, I'm sure Time Wizard isn't going to bite him in the butt later, which is actually executed better in the manga, if you ask me, but that's going to be a little ways away. So yeah, we gotta get to the finals before we gotta go through the tournament first, basically. So then Mai is upset about the accommodations, and then challenges Rex for the room using seduction and her body, basically, especially in the frickin' Japanese version, to basically trick Rex into a false sense of security. I'm not gonna get into that. Suffice it to say, it's like, well, she can do whatever she wants with her body, and it's not like as if she didn't go in with a plan, right? As my next note, talks about. Note, it's her mysterious power to know which card it is, and that's how she beat. That's the game they play, and Rex, loses. Loses that because of course he did. She also says too easy. Also, Mai is the first instance of characters getting censored. Anzu is wearing too much clothing for it to really matter. So yeah, and you only see like mugshot for Serenity, so nothing there. Although it is interesting that the boat only has private rooms for the top duelist. That makes sense to me. Just kind of something to note. Oh, yeah, and I missed a note here. Anzu being jealous in the Japanese version. She basically just sees Mai as arrogant in the dub and is jealous in the sub. Also, Anzu needing the bathroom makes a hell of a lot more sense than Taya being cold. That's all I want to say about that. Also, Time Wizard is a normal monster, so let's just get all the notes. I'm screwing up. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. But yeah. But let's get to the meat of the episode, and hence the what the episode is named in the Japanese version. Because Yugi is too trusting. Yeah, I don't even need my notes for the rest of this. Yugi is too trusting because he lets Weevil see Exodia. His reasoning in the sub makes a decent amount of sense. Well, if the secret strategy's out, there's no harm, right? That's why I say he's too trusting. Because not only is it a risk, but it proves why it is a risk, because Weevil is like, I've not been able to figure out how to beat Exodia. Until now, fling! And goodbye to Exodia! Also, incidentally, I mentioned last time how Pegasus's Japanese voice was kind of Weevil's voice in the frickin' dub is just ear poison to me. Oh my god. Ugh. He talks like with this high-pitched, whiny voice, and it's like, oh my god. I mean, I know he's an irritating character even in the sub, but come on, you went overboard with that one, 4Kids. Jesus. I didn't mention it last time because they only had the one scene, and I didn't think it was relevant. But yeah, here. So Exodia's lost. Joey tries to go and get Exodia back. It doesn't work. He only gets 2 of the cards, but he did try. I want you to keep this point in the back of your mind. Joey going and trying to rescue Exodia. It actually will come up a bit in season 2. Just briefly and basically for just one scene, but yeah. And you probably all know the scene I'm talking about if you've seen this series before. So then they go. They're saved by Tristan and Taya. And then Joey mentions that about the sister's eye operation that I already told you about. Yeah, they don't know about Joey having a sister in the sub. Just something to keep in the back of your mind, because it's gonna be related to my big speech about season 0, which I actually looked it up. It will be episode 13 that we're gonna be looking at, which, yeah, is going to be a total of 13 weeks. Well, maybe, depending on how total of, like, my episode count. But we'll see. We'll see. Because, well, yeah. But that's it. As I said, this is an episode where there isn't a lot to talk about. There really isn't. It's a bridge episode between between the invite to Duelist Kingdom and getting to Duelist Kingdom, right? So, shrug. Next week now we've got a situation, don't we? Because now the question is, am I going to cover the Weevil duel in one episode or two, because it is basically two-parter. Now, here's the thing. The dub doesn't actually name these two episodes as Into the Hornet's Nest Part 1 and 2. It calls it Into the Hornet's Nest and Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. Also known in the Japanese version as Insector Combo and Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. You know, which is funny because that's not actually the form that Great Moth takes, is it? We'll get to that. But next time, we will definitely have to talk about many things. We have to talk about the Duelist Kingdom rules, the why people call this the Screw the Rules season, and why well, and why Weevil's deck is like, wow, really? Like, I could curb stomp that deck even back in the day. Granted, that's the GX era, so grain of salt, but I mean, come on. If a deck gets power crept one generation later, that's ridiculous. I mean, how long did Burning Abyss last? Just as an example, which is a bad example, admittedly, because I mean, TCG exclusive archetypes tend to survive a hell of a long time. I guess Black Wings would be a better example, right? Look at how long Black Wings lasted. But regardless, that is it. Also, I'm going to just say this bluntly. No preference on which I prefer. Both of these episodes were fine in both versions. So there is no real preference here. Even less so than the first episode. Because the first episode I could say that musically I prefer the first one, right? Right. But I still think the episode is fine. The music itself does not shift it one way or the other. Although I will say this, just real quick. For anybody wondering if I'm going to do, since I'm doing, being a copycat, a lore runner, is there going to be any lamentations or, my equivalent? I am probably going to call those rant views, and oh, fuck yes. Though, admittedly, the Japanese, this is also why I wanted to do both versions, because if I just did the dub, oh god, there'd be rant views all over the goddamn place. But with the sub version, I can at least say, well, this is an episode that's better in the sub. So, okay. Hey, right? Not fair to grant the entire episode a rant view status just because the dub sucks, because that's like saying water is wet. you know? For a lot of people, anyway. But I'm rambling at this point. I am going to go ahead and chop this off and go ahead and get started on working on the next episode. Time to go into the Hornet's Nest, everybody. Blue Wolf Alex Lore Walker signing out. Later. Duel, stand by.